Let me guess, you're booked out, busy every single weekend, and yet your bank account doesn't reflect that hustle. The reality is 99% of wedding businesses aren't profitable. Not because they're not talented, but because they're running their business like a passion project. I know because I've been there. I built one of the largest planning firms in Orlando, Florida, and still wasn't making real money until I learned how to start running my business like a business instead of a hobby. Today, I'm breaking down the 3 brutal reasons why most wedding pros never turn a profit and what you need to do to join the 1% that actually does. And yes, I'm giving you real tactical things that you can do today to make that shift. Let's get into it. Okay, so number 1 is that you don't know your numbers. And this was something that I did for way too long in my business. I kind of was just like, I would start the month and say a prayer that enough money came in to pay for everything going out. And it was one of the biggest stresses in my business for so long because I never actually knew if we were going to be able to pay all the bills. I kind of had a general idea of how much was going out, but I rarely had an idea of how much was coming in. And how I would rationalize that was I would say, well, I don't know how many people are going to book us this month, so how am I supposed to be able to forecast? The reality is that's false because 1, you should have a really good idea of how much is going out in expenses every single month. So you should understand your overhead, your break-even number of how much is going out every single month in fixed expenses, and then a general idea of how much is going to go out in terms of labor to work the weddings that you have. But the piece of this that I think is missing for so many is being able to forecast how much is going to come in. So there's 2 parts to this. 1 is how much is already on the books. If you sold nothing this month, how much would come in from second or third payments or recurring payments that you have in your business from existing clients? So that's the first piece of the puzzle. The second piece is being able to forecast how much you think you're going to sell. Now that has a little bit of nuance to it. If you're new to your business, maybe less than 2 years into your business, this is going to be a harder number for you to forecast because you don't have as much history. But if you have been in business for more than 2 years, you should be able to look back and see about how many leads come in every single month. And you should know your conversion rate. So if you get 5 leads that come in every single month and your conversion rate is 20%, you know that you're going to book about 1 client for every 5 leads that comes in. These are numbers that are critical to being able to scale your business and what's going to make you part of that 1% that actually turns a profit in your business. Because what gets measured gets managed. And when you just put your head in the sand and hope and pray that enough money comes in every month to cover the bills, you're actually not running a business. You're not able to scale it because you have no idea what's coming. Having a grip on these numbers empowers you to take charge and to really understand where the money is coming from, where the leads are coming from, and how to do more of that so that you can scale. Okay, the second thing that I see all the time with wedding business owners who are not turning a profit or not paying themselves enough is that you're charging or you're pricing emotionally instead of strategically. So I was working with a student recently who came to me and said, I feel like our revenue is flatlined. Now they do a significant amount of revenue into the 7 figures, and they are basically doing the same revenue every single year. And I was like, that's interesting. Let's see why that's happening. Do you feel like you're not doing as many events? Do you feel like you're not getting as many leads? And he was like, no, I actually feel like we're doing more events. So we started digging into the numbers over the last 3 years because data tells us everything, right? You can feel all you want, but we want to go back to the data and see what's actually happening. So what we realized was that they actually are doing more events every single year. Over the last 3 years, they've had an increase in the number of events that they're doing, but their revenue is staying the same. So when we started looking through their average ticket of how much their average client spends, it's going down each year. So when I presented that to him, he said, that makes sense because I feel like the only way for us to win right now in this market is to lower our prices. So every year we've lowered prices. And that is an emotional response to a broken sales process. And this is something that's so important as a business owner for you to know, because if you're only tracking revenue and you're not tracking average ticket, it can take you a long time to realize that this is a problem. The exciting thing for this wedding pro is that we are now really starting to dig into the sales process because we're realizing they're actually booking more events every single year, which is exciting. They're getting more leads year over year. We've tracked that as well, but they need to refine their sales process so that they can start to really present that value and drive that higher ticket instead of just racing to the bottom bottom, which is actually causing his team to be completely burnt out because they have more events and they're making less money. And this happens to so many wedding pros because you just start to charge emotionally. You just want to see those sales numbers go up. You want to be excited and say, oh, I did 300 or 400 or 500 events this year. But the reality is that's simply a vanity metric. At the end of the day, as a business owner, what you should care about is how much of the revenue you actually got to keep, which is what we call profit. And if you're not profitable on your packages, it doesn't matter if you do 1,000 events a year. If you're not profitable, you're not going to be in business much longer. I want to make sure that you understand to be part of the group of wedding business owners that are profitable and paying themselves and living a great lifestyle from their business, you have to learn how to charge strategically and sell your value instead of racing to the bottom and pricing based on emotion. Okay, and the last thing that the 1% Club does, the 1% of business owners in the wedding industry who are killing it, who are actually making a profit, paying themselves a livable wage, being able to take vacation, support their family, this last thing that they do is they actually operate their business from a CEO perspective. Now, let me dig into what that means because you might just be listening to that and being like, what the heck does a CEO perspective mean? What that means is that they understand that the most important things that they personally can be doing in their business is marketing, sales, and team development. You as the business owner, as you start to grow, have to start outsourcing tasks. And I like to tell my high-level students this as they're starting to really step into that CEO role. They're starting to run into multiple six figures, scaling into that seven figures. I'm like, it is time for you to start acting like a CEO. Or sometimes I also say you need to start acting like a coach instead of a player. And the way that you can tell if you're doing this or not is when you look at the things that you have to do every single day, I want you to look at how many of the things are managing tasks and how many of the things are managing people. Because what we want to do is we want to manage the people who do the tasks, right? As a CEO of your business, you need to start outsourcing, getting the tasks off of your plate. And that could mean outsourcing a VA. It could mean outsourcing a marketing team. Could also mean hiring part-time and full-time people. It looks different for every business and what stage that you're in. But the reality is, as a CEO, as that person who's scaling profit and really starting to make a living from your business and pay yourself a healthy salary, you have to understand that the only three things that live on your plate are marketing, sales, and team development. If it does not fall into one of those buckets, it needs to not exist in your headspace because those are the things that are actually moving the needle in your business. And that's where your team needs you to live and thrive. Because if you are not focused on marketing, sales, and team development, your business will slowly start to backslide. You will start to slip on marketing. You won't have as many leads. Your sales will start to slip. Your team is going to start to crack and not necessarily know what they're doing. And possibly you could start to lose team members. You really need to thrive here in these three sections of your business. That's what moves the needle. That's what drives sales. That's what drives growth. And then all of the tasks that you did when you first started your business are being outsourced and moved onto other people's plates who are actually likely better at doing it than you were in the first place because you are the visionary. You are the one that casts the vision. You are the one that sets the goals. You're the one driving the bus and taking the team along with you. So really this CEO mentality, being the coach, not a player, is something that is so essential to scaling your business into that profitable wedding business. Here's the truth. You started your wedding business because you love it, but love alone doesn't pay your mortgage and it doesn't give you the freedom that you're craving. If you want to be part of the 1% who actually profit from their business, know your numbers, charge like a strategist, and lead like a CEO. This is the shift that changed everything for my business. And if you want help making that shift, head over to weddingproceo.com/application. Tell us a little bit about your business and book a free gap assessment with our team. We'll go through your marketing, your sales, your team, and we'll look for where there's gaps in your business that we can help you to eliminate so that you can start to scale your business and start to really turn that profit. And if you found this episode helpful, make sure to subscribe or follow on whatever platform that you're listening on, and I will see you guys next time.